Each March, in honor of International Women's Day, I dedicate at least one service to highlighting courageous and inspiring women. The women I place in the spotlight in today's message have overcome unspeakable harm. Yet, like the phoenix being reborn through the ashes, each one of these women emerged to tell their stories, yes, their stories anchoring others in similar circumstances to find their courage to transcend their own tragedies and transform their own lives. More than mere stories, the women I feature today have each created organizations to help lift other women up out of horrific situations, not as a concept or idea presented on a piece of paper for someone else to do, but organizations they themselves founded and led the charge for. Combined, they have directly helped hundreds of thousands of women and girls directly and positively impacted millions more. I will begin with a content warning. For it is hard to hear and hard to speak about the kinds of things I will today. But it is important to do so. So a content warning, for I will speak about the harms and crimes committed against these women and against the women and girls they help, including assault, domestic violence, coercive control, female genital mutilation, child marriage, and war-related systemic injuries. Most of this will be contextually, nothing excessively explicit, yet some with relative detail. So I wanted you to know that in advance. The first woman I would like to highlight today is Zainab Salbi, a Muslim woman born in Baghdad, Iraq. Her mother, Alia, was a secular Muslim and a biology teacher. Her father was a pilot. When Zainab was 11, her father became the personal pilot for Saddam Hussein, who thereafter regularly visited the family at their home while he was president of Iraq. While she lived in luxury, she witnessed firsthand the horrors of war growing up in Iraq. As time went on, her mother became concerned about the attention her daughter was receiving from Hussein. So in 1990, when Zainab was 19 years old, her mother sent her to the United States for an arranged marriage. Within a short amount of time, her husband's abuse led her to leaving the marriage. She had the affluence to do so, yet she could not return to her home in Iraq because of the beginning of the first Gulf War. She moved to Washington, D.C. and worked as a translator, eventually remarrying, earning a bachelor's degree, and becoming a U.S. citizen. In 1993, at the age of 23, she founded Women for Women International, a grassroots humanitarian organization dedicated to serving female survivors of war. And she helped them rebuild their lives, move from crisis and poverty to stability and economic self-sufficiency. This stability and economic self-sufficiency are such key factors in solving the war machine. Through her organization, she gave voice to what she calls the backline of war, the often unheard and ignored experiences of women and their efforts to survive terrifying consequences of the front line. She talks about the extremist groups who engage in what has become known as the rice sack method to recruit soldiers. Their enlistment agents, well, they come to your door, most often women who are already widows and in poverty. They come to them and they say, "Give us one of your sons, and we will give you a rice sack to feed your 7 other children." For the widow, and initially for a large number of these young sons who join, it is not about extremism. It is about survival and placing the family at the center. Zainab urges that unless we compete at the rice sack level, meaning we ensure you and your family are fed, unless we say, we are going to give you this rice sack and we are going to educate your children and help you get a job and create an income so that you can support your family. Unless we do that, she says, we are losing the wars at every level. We need to compete in the street by actually helping people eat and support themselves and their families. Additionally, she points out that the people, the real boots on the ground who are keeping communities going, are the ones never invited to the negotiating table. The women who are engaged in efforts to keep their communities from crumbling into terror and to keep their families alive. She says that we need to understand what war means and what peace means from a woman's perspective. From 1993 to 2011, Women for Women, under her leadership, grew from helping 30 women to more than 478,000 marginalized women in 8 conflict areas, and distributed more than 120 million in direct aid and microloans, impacting more than 1.7 million family members. Zainab is a humanitarian, a writer, and a social entrepreneur who has dedicated her life to women's rights and freedom. She hosted television shows about issues affecting women, the web-based series Through Her Eyes, and Me Too, Now What? On PBS. From 2022, she has produced the Redefined podcast, hosting transformative conversations about life's biggest challenges and finding personal meaning. Also in 2022, she co-founded and launched yet another passion project, Daughters for Earth, an organization supporting, celebrating, and mobilizing women to protect and restore our Earth. Thank you, Zainab. The next woman I want to speak about is Dr. Kakenya Ntaiya. She is an educator, community leader, and advocate for the protection of girls. She was born in a Maasai village of Enosayan. As a child, she was bright and eager to learn. From a very young age, her education was really important to her. By the time Kakenya was 5 years old, she was engaged to be married. In her village, female circumcision was a traditional Maasai rite of passage in preparation for marriage. It is a barbaric procedure known more accurately as female genital mutilation, FGM. It is traumatic, it is painful, and it is irreversible. It inflicts lifelong suffering, and the effects of which are truly grotesque for me to detail here today. The procedure is to be done in advance of marriage. It is to prepare these girls for their groom, often in early teen years, though it is often also done much younger. And with the expectation that once this procedure is done, the girl will stop her education. And at that time, she is on the path to become wife and mother. This monstrous practice to this day is found worldwide, including the Middle East, Asia, obviously it's in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, UK and Europe, South America, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United States. This is happening to our girls. Worldwide, 230 million women alive today have endured this procedure, and millions upon millions have lived and died having endured it. The practice of female genital mutilation is most widespread in Africa, where 144 million women and girls have been cut. Each year, over 2 million girls undergo genital mutilation before the age of 5. It is anticipated that in 2026 alone, 4.5 million girls under the age of 15 will be victims of genital mutilation. Regarding her procedure, and to place in context the deep-seated, ingrained social psyche surrounding this abhorrent cultural practice, Kakenya says that if I didn't undergo FGM, her father would have faced public shame, stigma, and ridicule in the community. He's the head of the household. As much as she did not want to undergo the procedure, and her family, they did wait until she was an early teen before they demanded it of her. At that time, she saw it as an avenue to negotiate with her father. This brave girl talked with her father, and she said that she would agree to be circumcised so that he wouldn't have to endure any shame. But she would agree to do it only if she could finish high school and not become a child bride. He agreed. She had the procedure. Of that time, she says her mother is her hero. Her mother jeopardized her own safety to provide specialized post-procedure care with a nurse following the FGM and took extra cautions to ensure Kakenya properly healed. Kakenya was the oldest of 5 sisters, and their mother did the same for each one. When Kakenya healed, she resumed her education and she finished high school in Kenya. Then, this brave girl, she negotiated with the village elders to once again go against the cultural norm and requested permission to leave her village and go to college in the United States. No other girl in her village had ever done this, yet the elders agreed. When she was accepted to college in the United States with a scholarship, she promised to use her education to help the village in exchange for their support. She went on to earn her PhD in education, and she honored her promise. She returned to her community to fulfill that promise. Dr. Ntaiya founded Kakenya's dream in 2008 to educate girls and harmful traditional practices, including female genital mutilation and child marriage, and transform rural communities. In 2009, the first Kakenya Center for Excellence boarding school opened its doors, initially serving 30 vulnerable Maasai girls. Today, Kakenya's dream reaches thousands of young girls, boys, and community members across rural Kenya. The ripple effect is noticeable and encouraging. Parents, once against the idea of educating girls, are now rallying behind their daughters and serving as champions of this mission, convincing others in the community to support girls' empowerment and advocate for an end to these harmful practices of FGM and child marriage. All of this in a community that once believed a classroom was no place for a girl, and that female circumcision was an essential rite of passage. Thank you, Kakenya. The next woman I want to speak about, the woman I want to spotlight as the last woman I'll speak about today. I first became aware of her in September of 2020. I was on the board of a television association, and we received an email from her informing us about a program produced by her organization in response to how COVID was making life even more dangerous for women and children trapped and isolated with angry and controlling family members. Her goal was for her film package to be aired on our member stations in October of 2020 during National Domestic Violence Prevention Month. This is how she described the primary message. Our film tells everyone, you are not alone. There is a way out. It can happen to anyone. And as a community, we see and we care. These were understandings she herself had learned just 4 years earlier in 2016. It was those understandings that prompted her to create her nonprofit. She had been married 29 years to a controlling and abusive man. Of that toxic marriage and her place in it, she said that I never thought of myself as a domestic abuse victim. I did not relate to the woman with the black eye. I never had a black eye. I am not pitiful. I'm strong. I couldn't relate. Yet she lived a life in fear for decades, a fear she did not voice until it became public information. She recalls the final incident that brought her private nightmare into the public eye. She said, I called 911 this time because he was in his Mr. Hyde mode of Jekyll and Hyde, where there was no reaching him, no turning back. He was trying to shove open the locked bathroom door behind which I had barricaded myself. As it was splintering, I pushed the numbers 911, and as he was breaking through the thick locked door, I pressed the button to send the number through because I believed when he broke through, he would kill me. The police arrived soon after and saved her. They interviewed both of them and arrested her husband. As often happens, especially with men of influence, he didn't receive any jail time. He did have to pay a small fine of $3,000. And I say small because he was a multimillionaire, a net worth estimated at about 50 million. So the fine, such as it was pocket change to him. Yet, in addition to the pittance of a fine, a 10-year restraining order against him was put in place to protect her from him. The order was extended from the original 2-year emergency protection order. In addition to protection from physical abuse, the order is meant to protect her from verbal and emotional abuse, including preventing him from disparaging her publicly and on social media. Yet he continues to weaponize the media to say awful things about her. This is part of the pattern of coercive control, something she had never heard before, she didn't know about, yet she came to understand as a key component in domestic violence. He is skilled at giving interviews, skilled at charming people, and often uses such platforms to have the media quote him saying scathing things about his ex-wife, from Fox News to New York Times and more. Journalists and interviewers have allowed themselves to be pawns in his game to target his wife. She says that it was hurtful and very traumatic in the beginning. The media should have a responsibility to not allow themselves to be used by the perpetrator. When objecting to such treatment, she says, the reporter tried to tell me it was about being balanced. It is not a he said, she said situation. There are not two sides in domestic abuse cases, she cautions. As a close friend to her commented, in what other crime does the perpetrator get a chance to blast the victim in an article? Nevertheless, it continues, and it happens to many victims of domestic violence in the media, in the courtroom, in social situations. Blame the victim is a toxic cultural norm. More recently, she says, at this point, it doesn't really bother me because I expect it. Their daughter, however, has this to say regarding seeing and reading such media coverage. She says, even though I am estranged from my father, seeing things like this makes me feel physically ill. It is emotionally devastating in so many ways. So tired of the media giving a platform to abusive, narcissistic men. For her mother, publicly reliving her nightmare was really difficult at first, especially considering the cloak of silence she lived in throughout her marriage. Of the good that has come out of media coverage was when her silence was broken for her by worldwide headlines about her husband's arrest. She said she was amazed by what happened next. She said of that time period, my community flooded me with love and support. Women everywhere, some I only knew casually, some I had known for decades, started whispering to me about the domestic abuse in their lives. They had not known about me, and I had not known about them. It was this realization and the support of these women in her community during this difficult time that was the impetus for her creation of Finding Our Voices. The movement started in her hometown of Camden, Maine, with 14 survivors talking openly about their abusive relationships, finding their voices one at a time. Of the first groundbreaking campaigns Finding Our Voices initiated was their survivor-powered posters featuring Maine women ages 18 to 80, survivors of abuse. The goal, naming the abuse, claiming their survivor status, and to smash harmful stereotypes, alert everyone to the complexity and ubiquity of domestic abuse, and give hope and help to women. She created a radio show, a podcast, a documentary. She created a Get Out, Stay Out fund to help women in desperate need. It provides financial assistance to low-income Maine women and also to affluent Maine women who appear affluent, but their husbands have them locked out of their accounts. So it helps women who are experiencing this financial issue, helps them get critical items to escape danger from an intimate partner, including expenses for shelter, car, legal, home security, utilities, and phones. She created viable resources women can actually access without needless red tape, including dental care for women injured in domestic violence assaults. She created a children's fund to provide joy and comfort to youth traumatized by domestic abuse, with gifts their mom do not have money to provide, including art, music, theater camp, driver's ed, even grooming shears for an 11-year-old to take care of her dog, musical instruments, sports equipment, back-to-school clothes, birthday parties, and Christmas presents. Finding Our Voices regularly hosts day-long and weekend retreats for women survivors that include memoir writing and craft making, personal safety, and songwriting. They host online support gatherings as well. If that isn't remarkable enough, they also have a sisterhood network where sister survivors attend court dates with women so they do not have to face their abuser alone for a protection order or a divorce case, because so many women lose the support of friends and family members when they speak out and they find themselves isolated, ostracized, and afraid. Also, there is a deep shame that is often felt as a result of the reactions of others, whether it is in their private moments, personal relationships, or for the world to witness in headline news as hers was. This is what she offers in response to such. If it is happening to you, you are not alone, and there is nothing for you to be ashamed about. That's why the headline in the news was so wrong. They tried to shame me, but the shame is not mine. The shame belongs to him. And I know up until this point, I have not named her or him, and that was intentional because he is famous and beloved by many. And as often happens when a charming man's name is mentioned, doubt creeps in even before truth can be revealed and fully disclosed. And I wanted you to hear her story before it could be clouded. His name. Her abusive ex-husband, who was captured by police as he was violently bursting through the bathroom door she had barricaded herself in, attempting to flee from his brutality in their palatial Camden, Maine home. The man who has 3 years left to a 10-plus year restraining order. The violence was deemed so vicious. Is musician Dawn McLean. Her name, this strong woman who rose up from disempowering circumstances, even as she faced shame fueled by media and disbelieving fans, willing to ignore the glaring reality, she rose up along with a circle of other survivors to create a thriving organization that helps countless women and children. Her name is Patrisha McLean. Today, we've covered some really hard topics. Yet this one may well be the most difficult because it is the one that is so often hidden in plain sight. And when revealed, it is met with contempt by so many, not for the crime, not for the perpetrator, but contempt for the woman who found her voice to speak the truth out loud. A poignant quote from Patrisha states why finding our voices is essential and also denotes why survivors speaking of domestic violence is so taboo and the reframing that must take place to shift this imbalance. She says, enough of us speaking out will change the question from, if there is abuse, why does she stay? To, why does he abuse? For it seems that it is only in crimes against women does the victim get blamed again and again. Let's be part of the, let me rephrase that. Let's continue to be part of the movements that change the world. Movements that are empowering women so that women and girls are safe in our communities, safe in their homes, safe to be themselves and live lives they love. May that be so. Amen. I'll close with the words of Canadian author, speaker, writer, and teacher Jeanette LeBlanc. A circle of women may just be the most powerful force known to humanity. If you have one, embrace it. If you need one, seek it. If you find one, for the love of all that is good and holy, dive in. Hold on, love it up. Let them see you. Let them hold you. Let your reluctant tears fall. Let yourself rise fierce and love gentle. You will be changed. The very fabric of your being will be altered by this if you allow it. Please, please allow it.